In the heart of the Grand Baskerville Castle, cries of newborns echoed through the air, piercing the silence of the ancient halls. Hugo Baskerville, the family's formidable patriarch, strolled through the room with disdain, his sharp eyes scanning the infants lined in their cradles. Insignificant, he muttered, dismissing most of them without a second glance. Yet he paused before one crib. A single child lay silent, his gaze eerily steady for one so young. "Bring them all to the cradle of swords," Hugo ordered, his voice cutting through the cries. The servants hurried to obey. The silent child was Vikir, who in that moment recognized Hugo as the man who orchestrated his death in a previous life. Memories surged back. A life of servitude and loyalty, tarnished by betrayal. Once a hound of the Baskerville family, Vikir was born of an illegitimate line and trained in the shadows, where loyalty meant enduring brutal trials and executing deadly missions. He had lived and died like a tool, discarded when he knew too much. But fate had granted him a second chance. Reincarnated as a baby, Vikir vowed to change his destiny. This time, he wouldn't live as a pawn. He would exact revenge, tearing down the family that had used and abandoned him. For now his infant body limited him, but he clenched his tiny fists with determination. Knowing the Cradle of Swords presented his first opportunity to grow stronger. The Cradle of Swords was a trial for every Baskerville child, a labyrinth of blades leading to the legendary Styx River. This river tested the limits of the children, transforming their bodies into iron while assessing their potential. Vikir, recalling his past life, knew the shortest path to the river and crawled toward it with calculated precision. Reaching the river first, Vikir plunged in, his small frame submerged in its icy waters. Pain seared through him as the water seeped into his wounds, yet he gritted his teeth and endured. The power of the river began to flow through him, reshaping his fragile body into something stronger. Above, 4 men watched in astonishment. "He'll die if he stays any longer," one servant cried. Hugo, standing beside them, laughed coldly. "Let him. The weak are weeded out this way." 7 agonizing minutes passed. "Call him out," Hugo finally said. But Vikir ignored the shouts. His resolve burned brighter than the pain as he clung to the chance to grow stronger. His vision blurred, his mind teetering on the edge of unconsciousness. Yet he remained submerged, absorbing the river's essence. Finally, he blacked out. Hugo waded into the river, grabbing the child by the foot and hoisting him up. "Enough," he declared, a smile creeping across his face as he noted the transformation in the baby. "This one is greedy, very greedy indeed." Vikir's tiny form hung upside down, water dripping from his body, but his mind was already racing with plans. He would bide his time, sharpening his newfound strength like a blade. One day he would sink his teeth into the family that had betrayed him, starting with Hugo. Vikir van Baskerville had been a genius in his past life, mastering swordsmanship and deadly missions by the age of 20. But in the Baskerville family, brilliance was normal, and loyalty meant nothing. At 40, after enduring decades of bloodshed, including the horrors of the Demon Clan invasion, Vikir was rewarded not with honor, but betrayal. Branded a traitor and executed, his head fell beneath the guillotine. When he opened his eyes, he was stunned to find himself in a nursery, staring at the ceiling as an infant. A surge of excitement coursed through him. He had been reborn. Flipping over, he grinned. The 7 agonizing minutes he had endured in the Styx River had reshaped his body even in infancy. Now he had a second chance to rewrite his fate. That night, a servant placed a mysterious box in Vikir's crib, muttering about a gift from the madam. Suspicious, Vikir watched as the box creaked open, revealing 2 venomous, bloody mamba vipers. They hissed, their crimson eyes locking onto him. Smirking, Vikir grabbed both serpents by their throats. Even as a baby, he knew the Baskervilles thrived on cruelty and betrayal. Strangling the vipers with sheer force, he thought only of his vow, to bring the family to ruin with his own hands. By morning, the nursery was in chaos. The nannies on duty were executed for the incident, but Vikir knew the truth. It was a deliberate attempt on his life. 8 years later, Vikir sat quietly in a classroom, listening to a lecture on swordsmanship levels. His teacher explained that sword beginners could not use mana, while sword experts wielded mana faintly. Sword graduates emitted a liquid-like aura, but the pinnacle, sword masters, could solidify aura into tangible forms. The teacher lauded Hugo Baskerville, the family patriarch, as one such master. While the other children marveled, Vikir's mind raced with plans. He would regain his strength and surpass them all. As the teacher praised his potential, noting his time in the Styx River and keen intellect, Vikir remained detached, calculating how long it would take to kill Hugo. His thoughts were interrupted by the Baskerville triplets, Highbrow, Middleborough, and Lowbrow, collectively known as Hugo's Trident. They approached with sneers, mocking the rumors of his feats. "Garbage!" Highbrow spat, shoving him. Vikir recalled how, in his previous life, they had betrayed him during his escape after the family framed him. This time he decided to deal with them early. Highbrow, wielding a knife, taunted Vikir. "If your bodies steal from the river, let's test it." Lowbrow grabbed Vikir's mouth, daring him to endure for 3 minutes. Vikir played along. As the minutes stretched to 10, the triplets' bravado faded into shock. When they released him, Vikir bit Lowbrow's hand, drawing blood. "You said you'd eat your hand, didn't you?" Vikir said, his crimson eyes gleaming as he wiped the blood from his mouth. Highbrow and Middleborough tried to brush it off, but Lowbrow panicked, clutching his mangled hand. When they attempted to leave, Vikir blocked their path. Enraged, Highbrow stabbed Vikir in the stomach, only to realize the blade didn't pierce him. Vikir smirked. "In Baskerville, power outweighs age," he said, twisting Highbrow's arm until he screamed. With a feral grin, Vikir leaned in. "Let's play till the end." That day, the triplets learned Vikir was no ordinary child, and no one would forget the monster in the making. Highbrow staggered back, clutching his hand in pain. His shout echoed through the room. The rumors were true, but his revelation was cut short as Vikir's fist met his face with a sickening crunch. Highbrow collapsed to the floor, blood pouring from his nose and teeth shattered. Middleborough and Lowbrow froze, their shock mirrored in wide, terrified eyes. Middleborough lunged forward, a desperate attempt to fight back. Vikir barely acknowledged the attack, effortlessly kicking him aside. He hit the wall with a groan, crumpling to the floor. Lowbrow stumbled backward, his legs giving way beneath him. He stared up at Vikir in disbelief, his trembling hands betraying his fear. "Don't be afraid," Vikir said, his voice calm yet chilling. "You'll heal with time. But," he added, picking up a gleaming knife from the floor, "you won't be leaving this room. Learn to live with the discomfort of your own weakness." He tossed the knife toward the triplets, its blade flashing as it landed between them. "One of you can leave," Vikir said, a smirk playing on his lips. "Decide among yourselves." Lowbrow, wide-eyed, managed to stammer, "Which one of us?" Vikir's red eyes gleamed as he turned to leave. "Decide quickly," he said over his shoulder, his grin widening. "At least one of you should live." The door closed with a finality that echoed in the room. Vikir paused just outside, listening. The sounds of shouting and scuffling filled the air. His grin deepened. The infamous Trident of Baskerville was tearing itself apart. Barrymore approached Hugo in the fortress's grand hall. "Another bloody incident involving the Morgue clan," Barrymore reported. "They're claiming the Ruby Mines as their own." Hugo, the patriarch of the Baskerville family, sighed. "There will be an opportunity to address it in due time." "What else?" Barrymore's expression grew grim. The triplets, Highbrow, Middleborough, and Lowbrow, had a fight. Vikir was involved. Highbrow's teeth are broken, Middleborough's jaw is smashed, and Lowbrow lost a finger. Physically, they've healed, but their bond is shattered. Hugo's eyebrows shot up. "The triplets? Fighting? They're inseparable." Barrymore nodded. "Not anymore. They don't speak or eat together. Their combination techniques are in ruins." Vikir was summoned before Hugo. The young warrior stood tall, his demeanor calm but his crimson eyes betraying a quiet intensity. "Did you do this?" Hugo asked. Vikir inclined his head slightly. "They received the proper treatment. Their injuries are no longer an issue." "Their injuries?" Hugo's voice rose. "Their hearts are broken, their unity destroyed. Was it wrong to do this to your brothers?" Vikir's smile was faint but sharp. Is the stronger person ever wrong? Hugo's eyes gleamed with approval. You remind me of a visitor once, a nun who forgave me for ruining her family. Forgiveness, I told her, is an excuse of the weak. Strength reigns supreme. Vikir recited the family's motto aloud. Only the strong will reign. Weakness is a sin. His glowing red eyes made Hugo's grin widen. You've earned a reward, Hugo declared. Take anything from the food storage. Chocolate, Vikir said with a grin, bowing slightly. Thank you, my lord. Barrymore later watched in confusion as Vikir rejected the Morg clan's infamous chocolate, instead requesting raw cacao beans. The purple, bitter, bloody beans were hardly edible, yet Vikir took them. Barrymore mused that Vikir's taste must be peculiar. Days later, Vikir stood atop a mountain, the wind whipping his dark hair. In his hands, the bitter beans rested. He grinned, his red eyes gleaming with anticipation. A catastrophe was brewing, one the clan had never seen before. The Baskerville children were forged in hardship, their upbringing brutal and relentless. Taking their first steps meant sprinting up a steep mountain. Sleep was earned only alongside the corpse of a slain monster. By the age of 8, they were molded into killers, and their ultimate trial awaited, the practical evaluation. A survival exam where failure meant disgrace and death earned no points. Set at the far reaches of the Baskerville mountain range, the evaluation demanded survival for 1 month. Points were awarded based on performance. Surviving was worth 10 points, doing so unscathed earned 30, betrayal of others added 50, defeating a monster granted 70, and fulfilling all conditions gave 90. Stealing from peers was allowed, but 100 points were a myth. Death, of course, meant 0. Pavlov, their steely-eyed instructor, addressed them. Arrogance kills a swordsman. Do not stray beyond the designated area. The mountain holds dangers even we do not understand. As his words hung in the air, the bell tolled. The young masters scattered, each with their plan. Rumors swirled about Vikir, the silent prodigy. The triplets, wary of him, avoided his gaze. Vikir simply smiled, a predator sizing up the battlefield. As others clashed, he veered off, heading for a massive tree. A shadow dog silently observed him, its glowing eyes puzzled. While the others fought and hunted, Vikir gathered wood and dug into the soft earth, constructing sharpened stakes and traps. He seemed content to prepare, his calm demeanor baffling the shadow dog, which eventually left, dismissing him as passive. Vikir, however, was far from idle. Surrounding himself with pits of spears, he reflected on past lessons and prepared for the hunt. Days later, he ventured into the restricted zone, a forbidden place that terrified even the strongest. There he caught the faint, acrid scent of burning. Kneeling by a pile of smoldering excrement, his lips curled into a grin. You're here! The ground shook. A guttural growl erupted as a hellhound emerged, its body ablaze with hellfire, embers spilling from its snarling jaws. Vikir stood unmoving, his eyes gleaming. Perfect, he murmured, his trap ready. The hunt had begun. At 18 in his previous life, Vikir had barely managed to defeat a hellhound. Now at 8, it seemed impossible, but his past life had gifted him knowledge and a plan. The hellhound snarled, its body blazing with hellfire. Vikir dashed toward it, exploiting its weakness. A hellhound could only move in straight lines, making it easy to dodge but hard for it to adjust course. The beast lunged, but Vikir sidestepped effortlessly. Stunned, the hellhound hesitated, and Vikir seized the moment, uncapping a bottle and spraying water across the ground. Hellhounds, unable to step across water, were forced to adjust their approach, exposing another fatal flaw: their tendency to run with their mouths wide open. As the hellhound charged, Vikir flicked something small into its open mouth and dodged its strike. The beast circled, its movements growing sluggish. It stumbled, whimpering, then collapsed. Vikir revealed the secret: a bloody bean. A single bean could create enough chocolate to poison 100 canines. For the hellhound, it was lethal. The beast lay on the ground, unable to move. Vikir approached, his sword gleaming as he aimed for the gap between its ribs. With one precise thrust, he pierced its kidney, and the hellhound howled its last breath. As its body stilled, A glowing blue essence emerged, XP or karma, energy from slain monsters. Vikir absorbed it, feeling his short sword grow lighter, a sign of his growing power. He grinned, already imagining the look on Hugo's face when an 8-year-old brought back a B-plus ranked monster. This kill secured his victory in the practical evaluation, and he'd already decided on his reward, a book whose worth only he understood. But as he prepared to sever the beast's head, a growl behind him froze him in place. 4 more hellhounds emerged, their eyes gleaming with vengeance. Vikir readied himself, flicking more bloody beans into his hand. But before the fight began, a massive presence loomed behind them. The hellhounds whimpered, bowing in fear, a reaction Vikir knew was impossible. Turning, he saw the source, a 3-headed Cerberus, an A-plus ranked monster, injured, blood dripping, arrows piercing its hide. It had been chased from the barbarian tribe's territory. Vikir knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. With his blade cloaked in aura, Vikir attacked, aiming for one of its heads. The Cerberus countered, and despite Vikir's polished swordsmanship and immense strength, the battle turned against him. One crushing blow shattered his sword and sent him flying into a tree. Blood spilled from his mouth as his vision blurred. The fight was far from over, but survival was now uncertain.